Hello, welcome back to Blender Social LiveEnoding. In this episode, I'm going to start touching on Blender game engine. Even though I'm not like, I actually have very little knowledge of Blender game engine, but I kind of wanna make some kind of connection between Blender Sverchok node animations and animation nodes and use it inside Blender game engine. And this is one of such an example. This is actually a Blender game engine just doing a loop on the monkey head. Um, and the looping animation is actually generated using Sverchok animations and Blender animation nodes add-on. Um, so it's kind of like a looping inside Blender game engine. The nice thing about Blender game engine is, of course, it can be interactive. So at some point, maybe if we have like some kind of interactive music playing in the background, and then I want to create a setup where the Blender game engine animations will react to the sound, for example, or maybe interact with the user or the camera, kind of like a demo scenes. Yeah, I just want to touch on this. I know I've been planning to do this for a while, but I think I'll start doing anyway. I'll start from scratch. First of all, how do we create looping animations? A looping animation is, of course, the basic is like if you have an object in one position, this is like the start position, and then this is the second, and this is the third. At some point, it should go back to the original position, and it shouldn't just snap. It's not like looping. If you want to make the objects to loop kind of from this point in the second point to the last point, and then suddenly you snap back to the original position, that's kind of okay, but not that's not like a very smooth kind of looping. Um, there's also another looping where you have like a object from position A to position B and then back to position A. That's kind of like more like a ping pong, and another one is like using this kind of like a sine wave where it's kind of like moving back and forth between two positions. The one that I want to create here is actually to move from position A to position B to C and back to A, kind of like a circle. How do we do this using nodes? So yeah, of course you can generate this using just manually, but I want to use it a procedural way to generate some kind of looping animations. So let's start. Um, let's do something really basic. First of all, if we use like I'll have like a cube, and if you want to make like an animation really quickly, I know the fact that we can just use the object transform output, select our object, turn on the position, and here I can use the wiggle, vector wiggle, plug this to that guy, and then frame into the evolution. And we have some kind of animations. Even though it's super basic, but it's still an animation and it's gonna wiggling forever. But the thing about this is that it will not ever come back to the original position unless you make it too. And that's something that I've been kind of thinking, how do we make it looping actually with animation nodes? I actually didn't know the answer. I have to ask around and figure it out at some point. But I will do the looping animation using Sverchok. I will explain it using Sverchok because it's kind of easier. Um, so yeah, I'll start with a circle. And look at this. If I view or draw the circle, this circle is actually rotates around, and this is actually looping. And this is actually the basic idea. If we make an object kind of to travel around um, in some kind of geometry or some kind of path that actually looping, then you can easily generate looping animations, especially in terms of location. So that's actually the basic gist of it. Um, I can use circle and kind of you know, like randomize the circle if I like. So this will actually loop the object. Gonna make something really quickly. I think I'm gonna use just set object set ID. Instead of delta location, I will actually use the actual location of the object. Select the object, and then from this circle value, I'm gonna plug this into this, and gonna use list item and set it to level 1 perhaps, actually level 2. Level 2 is actually working. So this guy is gonna do a circle until at some point it's gonna stop and it's giving an error. What's going on is that with the list item, it is going a loop, but then once it goes, it's over the number of points, it says, hey, you don't have any more points that I can follow, so it's gonna stop. So the idea here is, if I use something like a frame, okay, it crashes. I'm gonna restart Blender real quick. It's my computer, it's always doing this crashing, weird crashing. Anyway, I already save it. I save every few seconds. Maybe that's why it's crashing as well. But anyway, so far we make like a circle, and then circle has a bunch of points. And what I did in Sverchok is just using list item to go around using the point position informations. So it should kind of work, but it's failed after if we run out of points, it failed. So the idea is really just use a frame and maybe use math and then modulo. Where's modulo? Modulo, and plug this into that guy. And if we make it like 10, if I run the frame, okay, it's actually complaining because the value is actually a floating value. I need to convert it to integer. Now if I run it, you know, see, it goes kind of in a looping. If I display the number, you will see very clearly what's going on. Gonna loop it. See, it goes very fast, like up to 10, and then goes back to 0. In this case, we have like 24 points, so I think this guy is doing proper looping now. If I get rid of the randomization, okay, so it's kind of looping, and it's perfectly looping, okay? Even though it's kind of like jumping around. I mean, it's not like super smooth, but we can always add points, and now it's doing a perfect loop. Actually, we need to increase this as well to 36. 30, I think it's 35 because, yeah, I think it's 35 because now it's totally smooth and perfectly doing it. Okay, that's if we are using a circle, but in our case, you know, circle is pretty boring. Maybe we can do better. Instead of using circle, let's do like a random vector. And random vector, if we are using vector interpolations, plug this into that guy and this into that guy. Let's make a bunch of points. Actually, I'm gonna use a range float really quickly, and this is like a resampling thing we did for grease pencil. This will actually generate a bunch of points. Let's say I have only three points, so that's 1, 2, 3. Since we want to do like a looping, we need to just turn on the cyclic, and by doing that, we really generate like a situation where this part is gonna loop back to the original position. We can have 4 points or 5 or 6, doesn't matter. We can randomize the seed. We will always get the proper looping. So that's the idea. And if you want like a smooth animations, we can turn on cubic, and that's like perfect for what we are doing. And in fact, you can also use the tangent, but we're not gonna do that for now. Just the position. So we can use this vertices position, plug into that guy, and how many we have? We have 6 points. This is 36. Okay, we still have 36. So yeah, so everything just worked perfectly. I will in fact create a UV connections to display the edges anyway, so we can see the path clearly. So that's how we can create a looping, like a perfectly looping animations based on a path that's actually procedural. We can randomize the seed and find the one, okay, I like this kind of animations, and we can use this. In fact, probably you want to have, you can tell Sverchok, okay, make 100 paths and then bake every path, and then later on in Blender Game Engine you can kind of set it up so you can simply apply that animations to the objects, kind of adding more variations. So yeah, so that's basically the idea. So this guy is now looping perfectly, and we have the total of frame that we're gonna need is between, actually this is the start is 1, and at 250 we want to start from 0, I think, in this case. Okay, start from 0, and then it should end at 35 because we have 36 value here for the looping animations. Modulo is 35, I think that's correct. I might be wrong, but it's okay. This is the animations, and we want to bake it. Sverchok doesn't have a way to bake this thing. This guy is actually animating in the locations. You can see, okay, it's animating the locations. I want to bake this using animation nodes. So go back to animation nodes and then create a if we use like a set keyframe and select this guy and then enable location, it's gonna fail. Okay, it's not gonna work. What we need to do is we turn this guy into a dummy kind of object, but I will use the monkey head as the master. This is gonna be the master. This is gonna be like a kind of like a dummy proxy. Since the cube is being animated using Sverchok, we want to transfer the animation into the monkey head. We can simply use object transform output and object transform input. The output is going to be for Suzanne, and the input, object transform input, is going to be the cube. Plugging location into this guy, and then Suzanne head is now animating, following the cube perfectly. And we can actually keyframe Suzanne head, not the cube, because the cube is being controlled by Sverchok, and it's kind of clashing if you're kind of trying to bake the cube. So just simply plug that in and enable location, keyframe, and just run the animations. I think if I select Suzanne head, you see it's doing the baking. We can run it many times, doesn't matter because it's gonna loop anyway. So I'm gonna stop everything, delete everything, we're done. We have Suzanne animations, and the next thing we want to do is just to transfer this into Blender Game Engine. Okay, switch to Blender Game Engine, and we're gonna turn on if I run the Blender Game Engine, you will see the Suzanne head and then the cube is just motionless. We cannot run a normal keyframe animations inside Game Engine. We need to have a different kind of setup. So Suzanne head, hit P, looks pretty boring, doing nothing, and it's just white. We need to have at least a lamp and a camera, I think. So I make this guy smooth and then increase the subdivisions, playback. That's a little bit better, not so good. I'm gonna turn on GLSL. Actually, GLSL map. I think this is supposed to work, but I might forget something. Well, I'm gonna switch to. Oh, actually, I need a material. Okay. Create a material for this guy and turn on GLSL. Ambient occlusion should work as well. No. Did I delete the light? Maybe I'll just gonna switch to multi-texture for now. Maybe because I'm recording this and it doesn't work when I'm recording. Well, anyway, that's good enough. All we need to do now is to just to animate the monkey head. So we're gonna switch to Blender game engine game logic, and I know a little bit how to work this out. So Suzanne, let's give it an always and plug this like that. This is almost like a nodes, and then actuator is actually just the motion or action. Okay, action. Plug this guy there. Action, Suzanne action, and start and end frame of the animation 0 to 35, and make this guy to play back. I think loop end, loop stop or loop end, I don't know. Just do it like that, playback, and yeah, so you can see this guy is animating, and it will loop forever and ever like this. And this is actually almost like a demo scene. I probably need a camera first real quick. Create a camera. I can make it full screen. I can export it out and it's become like a demo scenes. It's almost like a game, even though it's like very boring. It doesn't do anything, just looping. But still, it's like a program. Align the active camera to view. We have Susan head. Okay, you're gonna animate along the path. We can see the path, so it's kind of cool. Okay, that's doing it. And I think GLSL worked from the camera. Huh, weird. Didn't work. Multi-texture, okay. So, well, anyway, this works at least. And if we want to change the animations, we can always go back to Sverchok and randomize the seed. Maybe the one that's kind of making number 8 is kind of nicer. Yeah, maybe something like that. Oh, I actually accidentally delete the animation in animation nodes. Okay, then what's this guy is controlling? The cube. The cube is already. Oh, the cube is still there. Okay. Quickly go back to animation nodes. Object. Create object transform input. Get the cube. Objects transform output. And location goes in here. This is the monkey head. Set keyframe again. Update the monkey head location. Go back to monkey head. Run the simulations. Monkey head follows the new path. And if we go back to game engine, the new path is being created. Actually, I think the funny thing, if we didn't delete this, go back to Sverchok and update the animation here. Oh, there's a nice path. Okay. Reanimate. This is like baking a new animations for Suzanne. And back to animation game engine, and it works. This is your game engine, and if we run it in full screen or in stereo on, I think stereo may be kind of cool. Wow, that's totally trippy, but yeah, let's have a look. GLSL. Oh, doesn't work. Standalone player start resolution, and this one. Oh yeah, it's working. Cool. I can also make it full screen. So I guess that's pretty much it for this live noding. Hopefully you find this useful. Let me know what you think. If you have any question, feedbacks that you want to add to this one, let me know. Hopefully this is useful for you.